Hello, hello again. Hope you're doing well out there. Um, just just hope it's staying cool and things like that. Let me turn down my TV in the background. Well, I just made a video earlier today, and we're gonna examine and look in what it's like to be in the interracial family. Um, there's a couple videos you should check out. It probably won't be as long as my other videos, but shout out to first content creators Taylor Publishing this video.
Relatively unknown law. You can place precious metals in an IRA account.
Negroes here, and they don't want to be disturbed. They really are. I have one that I just love. She nursed my children for about 6 years, and I wouldn't have her want for a thing if I found out that she needed something. And I was right amused when my daughter from Arlington, Virginia came down. She was one of the children that Missy had nursed. And I got my son to drive us out to see Missy. And she had also nursed him. And his little boy was in the car with us. And when Missy came out, she said, "Look at my children." And she put her arm right around William's shoulder. And the little boy just looked up out of, he didn't know what to make of it. And I said, "Listen, Billy, that was a mother to him for a while."
Keyword, nurse. Nurse them. To all the white women that were coming after me in 2020, and some of y'all now, that's why I reposted my last video about black women taking care of white children. Clearly. But anyway, there's more to the video.
That was a mother to him for a while. I tell you, she helped nurse him. And so that's the association we had with them, and I presume there's still some good ones around. Of course, there are some getting some ideas, and that's all right. That's progress. But we've got some mighty good donkeys here.
Darkies, huh? From 1965. You keep trying to tell us this hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Standing in front of a Confederate flag saying there's some good darkies out there. Anybody's Mima? My dad was born in 1951. When this interview was being done, he was 14 years old. My dad. And he's still alive today. In his 70s. Y'all can miss us with this, this type of thinking was so long ago, blah, 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 blah. No, it was not. This is why they don't want to teach true history, because Mima or Papa is going to show up in these videos. Some of them are getting ideas. What? For you guys to stop oppressing us? I hate when I'm like this. It just irritates my soul. Anyway. Remember, diversity equal power. We can change the world when we work together and protect black women.
YouTube ads is made for your business. Bring your brand to life with targeted video.
And protect black women.
Alright, so I'm going to stop it right there. Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. All praises to the Most High. And shout out to my sister. I think her name is Mia Goddess. I'm using that video with fair use. But she played a video, and apparently from the caption of that video, the video was from 1965. And it had, I think, a woman from Mississippi. So Mississippi curator of the museum. And I guess she was giving some testimony about her, as she quoted, her association with them. And she started off by saying that we have some good Negroes here. And when I think about that, I think about, sometimes those same good Negroes will say, well, these are good white people here. And I guess they may be referring to the lady saying that if, I had one, right? She said she had one, and this is 1965 in Mississippi. and that lady was probably 60, so she may have been talking about, 20 or 30 years ago, in 1930 or 40. She said she had one. Now, is she talking about that she owned one, or that she had one who worked for her? Now, I even talked to a lady on the phone one time that said, I was born a slave. I was like, when were you born? She was like in the 80s, or in 60 or something like that. That was in one of those states like Alabama or Mississippi. So I don't know if she's talking about she owned that lady, but the main part of what I want to talk about in that segment is the fact that she said that I had one, and she actually nursed my children for about 6 years. And if you know what nurse means, that means the black woman breastfed the white babies. And you see a lot of pictures in the history books where you see a black baby hanging off the nipple of a white woman. Now, first of all, why would a superior being, as they say, want an animal, a beast, a dumb, rotten, all of those in-iger, all of those mean derogatory words that they used to call her? Why would they want their children taking supplements, taking fluid, taking actually the DNA of black women if we were so inferior? I think they knew, the power of, who we are. So that's why they had to subjugate it. Also, if anybody knows anything about breastfeeding, the woman had to have children herself within that time frame for her to be able to breastfeed. So where were her children at, and was she made to have children so that she can nurse these white children, as they used to make them do? So that part right there in 1965, and once again, that lady might have been 60, so maybe 20 or 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, she's talking about having a black woman breastfeed her own children, while who knows what was happening to that own black woman's child. And then she tells the story of how her children come back to Virginia. Now, they were from Arlington, Virginia. Now, Virginia is still the South. I didn't know that until I moved there from North Carolina, but I thought I made it to the big city. But yeah, Virginia is still the South. So they came back, and the daughter and the brother came back with their children. Their children saw, I guess we'll call her Mamie, Big Mamie, come out and hug the two, white parents of those little kids. And there go my children right there. Now the little kid looking back like, man, what is she talking about? And then the grandmother, the perceived slave owner, says, yeah, they was like a mother to your mother and father and your auntie, right? And so then she says, see, that's the association we had with them. There was not an equal playing field. There was a give and take. There was a receive. There was a use for black people back then in the benefits of white people. Now, long as the black people were complicit in their role, then there was not a problem. But you heard the lady say herself, well, you do have some of them that's getting ideas, and as the sister said, ideas of what? We want y'all to stop oppressing us? No, you have to stay in that submissive place. Now, that goes all across America when you see these things happening, especially when, people are talking to the police, putting them in their place. No, you don't have the right to do that. You have to stay in your place. So don't get any ideas that you're smarter than me, that you know the Constitution more than me, that you know the law more than me. No, don't get any ideas, And so then she ends up, saying, yeah, we've got some good darkies, not good people, not good humans, because every time I talk about racism, people say, we are all the human race. Yeah, we are, but how are we going to be the human race when one part of that human race calls other, or it treats the other part of the human race as darkings, as lesser than. So we cannot duck our head in the sand and say, yeah, we all humans, but we allow, some humans to be treated worse than others. We can, we can't play that game. But our goddess Mia made a very valid point as well. This was in 1965, and I would have to concur because my father was born in 1953. So at the time of this video, he was 11 years old at the time of this video. Now, you think her children at the time of that video, may have been 20 or 30, right? So now they are, maybe, in their 80s or 90s, but those children who looked up and saw that, they got that same energy. They got that same energy, and those children who looked up and saw that are probably my age. 65. Well, no, they wouldn't be my age. But their children are probably my age. Nevertheless, the point we're trying to make is it's not that long ago. It's not many generations ago. Like that, like my father still talks about in Little Goldsboro, North Carolina, where they had to go in the back doors of places. My father, who's living today, like I can go and talk to him. I might even have him on the show one day. He can give me stories in his lifetime of how, they had to actually integrate high school. Like they didn't integrate high school in Goldsboro until 6 years after that video in 1971. And so this is not long ago, and the same children who were benefiting from that are my father's age now, and their children got the same tutelage that their parents got. And so while these things are less covert, less overt, there's still a lot of latent beliefs. Like I said, this is not something that went away with the civil rights movement or the election of Barack Obama or whatever milestone that you want to see. Like this video is clear-cut proof of how people felt about us and the ramifications of those feelings. As the scripture says, the sins of the father will fall thereof upon the children. Now,
Okay. Wow, that was deep. But I'm going to show you something recently what happened before I get back to it. Now, you hear the old woman, right? Watch what this woman says this to her granddaughter.
Dentures versus Newton's permanent teeth only 24 hours. Do you think you could break these?
So this is what goes on in these hillbilly households. Take a look.
You too, baby. I got you too. Look at TikTok. Look. What? I got it too. One of the kids. Well, move them. Move yourself. Move yourself. I live here. She don't. Hold your tongue. I live here. I live here. Act like an adult. Why? That's enough, mother. That's enough. That's enough. Because stop. Stop. I got you too, baby. I got you too. Look at TikTok. What?
And this is why I'm not a proponent of interracial relationships. You know that this isn't the first time that old hag has said those words, right? We know that's not the first time. And it's probably not the first time she said it in front of them biracial babies. And she had no problem saying it. Not only was she filmed saying it, she also was filming herself saying it. That's the level in which she feels very comfortable and free using that word. And these babies are subjected to that. Didn't matter how much her husband was telling her to stop. Didn't matter how much the daughter finally got up, because she said it a lot before the daughter actually got up, who I believe is the mother of these children. And she still was saying it. And she's like, this is my house, not theirs. And then she also was calling her a crackhead. And again, as the people were telling her, stop, 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 she felt very righteous in continuing to use that word. What I would like to know is, would she have had the audacity, or should I say the caucasity, to say it when Black Daddy was there? I highly doubt it. And it didn't matter anyway. She was like, you can call the police, you can call the police. She didn't care. She was very free saying it. Now here's what I would do. I would have picked up those babies, I would have left that house, and that would have been the last time she saw her grandbabies. Because clearly, she's an anti-black racist. She doesn't have any love for those children. If she did, she would not have been saying that to these young kids. And then even hearing one of them screaming, because even at that age, this child knew that this was not the right thing to say. I know for a fact, any black man I knew found out that that's how you were talking to their baby girl, trust me, it would have gone down. But again, that woman has no right to ever see those children again. And I wouldn't even feel like they were safe around her, okay? So I doubt this was the first time. It will not be the last time, but it needs to be the last time she sees those babies.
Wow. Nothing don't surprise me no more when you see stuff like that. It doesn't surprise me. I think it should wake America up that there's some people that feel like that. But we see that that's one incident. Let's check out this.
Divesting gone wrong. After the magical mixed race baby, the white man becomes racist. This divester says she is black and she is also wearing a weave, so it might throw people off. Anyway, the white man was already doing damage and she decided to get pregnant anyway. Gee, I wonder why. After she has the magical mixed race baby, she finally finds the strength to leave him and expose his racism and abusive ways. Now this video is not meant to make fun of women who experience domestic violence. This video aims to educate black people on how divestors often invite racists into the community intentionally, and when things don't go their way, they come back looking for help. The video aims to educate the masses by preventing further damage to the community from divestors. White men are not who divestors make them out to be.
Who would have thought that the man you fell in love with and marry, the man you grow your family with, would become the first person to call you a racial slur? Posted a Am I the A-hole on Reddit, and it was pretty popular before being deleted due to mentioning domestic violence. Due to it being deleted, I want to share it here and ask you guys the same question. Am I the A-hole? 3 months ago, my husband was arrested for domestic violence. I took that opportunity to leave him after dealing with years of this. While out on bail, my ex ignored the criminal contact multiple times, even admitting to doing things like turning off the heat and turning on the AC to the lowest point in the coldest winter months so the kids and I would essentially freeze via smart app. After a little over a month ago, my ex-sister-in-law, who was supportive at first, started making excuses for my ex. She was our third-party contact and would try to get me not to report him. I even moved states to get away from him with the help of the DA's office, and a month later, my ex moved to the same state, which is the state we both are originally from. As the harassment from my ex continued, I would call her for help, and she'd tell me things like he's going through a lot and to give him a freebie. At one point, my ex, who's white, called me a racial slur, and she told me, how would my daughter feel if I put her dad in jail over a word? So I didn't report it, and it continued. Eventually, I had enough. I sent her a long text thanking her but letting her know I can no longer allow this anymore and no longer needed her as a third-party communicator. I waited a few hours for a response before blocking her. Fast forward to this past week, I filed for protection from abuse on my ex in my new state. The next day he was served and arrested for an outstanding warrant. I hadn't spoken to my ex-sister-in-law or her husband in over a month, and any other members of my ex's family in over 3 months. But after my ex was served and arrested, his brother texted me calling me petty and saying him and his wife were washing their hands of me. Filing a PFA and reliving your hardest moments is already not easy. So getting a message from his brother, who's also a police officer and most likely sees domestic violence situations often, was disappointing to say the least. After he sent that message, he blocked me and I couldn't respond. I screen captured the text and sent it to his wife, who is also an officer. Her response was snarky and deflective. After speaking with my domestic violence advocate, I reported this to the non-emergency line, for a record in case it escalated. I felt like I was up against my abuser and his family, and I was exhausted. My local police then told my ex's brother not to contact me again, and I hoped that was the end of it. However, shortly after, his wife, ex-sister-in-law, called that police officer back and lied, saying I've been harassing her and contacting her and other members of the family, and she will file harassment on me if I don't stop. I only contacted her after her husband messaged me, and my texts to her were defending myself for filing a PFA on my ex, not harassment. She was replying back, and to get the last word after I blocked her again, sent me a Facebook message. Am I the a-hole for reporting this with screenshots to their department's lieutenants?
I ain't gay, but I do gay stuff. Like fucking dudes in the back of my truck. A little ass slap don't mean I'm queer. I just suck some dick when I drink my beer.
I shared my story on TikTok with what I was dealing with my ex and his family of police officers. It sparked some very important conversations. However, I ended up deleting it because I went through different stages of healing, and part of that was kind of embarrassment and wanting to hide. Now that I'm at a much better place, I do want to share my story again in hopes to help someone else. It's a long story, so I'm going to condense it down, but also share it in about 3 to 4 parts. Alright, so I met my ex-husband in San Diego. I was a private client branch banking manager, and he was a active duty Marine. We fell in love, we got married, and about a month after the wedding, I was pregnant. During my pregnancy was actually the first time my ex became physically violent with me. I hate to say this, but at the time I did blame myself because he was having a difficult relationship with his parents due to defending me against their comments and treatment towards me. At my wedding, my former mother-in-law even ignored me, standing right next to me at times and choosing not to communicate with me. I made it a point to go up to her and say hi to her because I knew she wasn't going to do that. Even so, she would pull my husband aside to take pictures with just her and their family, although the photographer already had those same shots. I tried to ignore it and told myself that she was born the only child and had 4 sons, so she wanted to feel like number 1 in their lives. But it was the ignorant and prejudiced comments that I just couldn't ignore. But whenever called out by myself or my ex regarding the things that she was doing, she would try to gaslight me and act like it was all in my head. I remember on the way to our honeymoon, instead of calling to say have a great trip, his dad said, I know she's your family now, but don't forget about us. I was sitting right next to him in the car while they were on speakerphone, and I felt like that was so passive-aggressive and divisive. I was seeing firsthand how toxic this family really was, and it didn't help when my husband would share additional stories from his past. Speaking of, one time when my ex was setting boundaries with his mother in regards to her treatment towards me, she had reminded him of a traumatic event that happened to him in the past and how she was there for him. I'm not going to share the event, but I can say it's something that a friend, let alone a parent, should never bring back up to throw in someone's face. This had caused my ex to break down in tears, and we should have took that as a sign to stop communicating with them then and there, but we didn't, and it continued. Whenever I would tell them to stop saying certain things around me, instead of understanding, they always became defensive. At one point, my mother-in-law shared that she asked her boss, who's married to a black man, if she was doing anything wrong, and her boss didn't think so. What should have been an exciting time with a new marriage and a baby on the way became extremely stressful for both of us. Not only was I pregnant, but I had just lost a father figure due to complications from COVID. My then spouse was also preparing to be away for 6 months, the majority of my pregnancy, due to deployment. Later on, I found an article written on one of my ex's parents. I'll just attach it here. Later on, I found an article written on one of my ex's parents. I'll just attach it here. I realized then that these were not the type of people that I should expect any understanding from, and decided that going back and forth was not worth my time. Due to all that I just shared, the first time my ex became physically violent, I blamed the stress and the fact that he was defending me against his siblings and parents, and it was taking a toll on him. So now that you have a little bit of a backstory regarding the first instance of abuse, I want to go ahead and jump towards the reason for the video today. In October 2023, my ex-spouse was arrested for domestic violence. My son, who was 14 at the time, called the police, ending years of abuse stopping the cycle. It wasn't the first time the police came to our home, but it was the first time I was honest about what happened. I wish I could say it ended there, but it didn't. Watch part 2 to hear the aftermath of the arrest. Okay, I am back with part 2. Part 1 was a brief backstory of what led into the first instance of physical violence, as well as the issues dealing with my ex's family. Although this time he was arrested, it wasn't the first time that the police came to our home. A few months prior to this, my ex was physical, and I ended up calling the police and his parents. I had called his mom, letting her know what was going on, as well as letting her know that he had left with a firearm, threatening to unalive himself. She seemed worried and apologetic, stating that she wonders if she could have done more in his upbringing to prevent this. Because of my ex's threats to unalive himself, once the police arrived, I covered for him, saying that nothing happened. At the time, I didn't know that this was a manipulation tactic that an abuser will do to avoid accountability. So in this instance, it was never reported, and he got away with it. And although they say it won't happen again, it always does. When I had shared additional concerns with my then mother-in-law regarding my ex, She had texted him asking if he was alone so she could relay the communication I shared with her. Shame on me for thinking I could trust her based off of my previous history with her. When I sent her a cold text asking how dare she put me at risk when she knew what her son was capable of, she played innocent and acted like she only had good intentions. So when he was arrested, I didn't dare call her or his dad. So instead, I called his brother's wife. Let's call her Karen. Over time, I got to know her a little bit better and thought I could trust her because she also saw through our mother-in-law's BS. Once my ex was released on bail, she agreed to be the third-party communicator regarding our children. However, the communication was never about the children, as he decided to harass us instead. The first night that he was released on bail, he came to the home by opening the garage door. He opened it just enough to roll under. I'm assuming that he thought by opening it just enough to get in, that I wouldn't be alerted. But I was. I jumped up, turning on all the lights in the house. My son ran to the window and saw his car parked at the end of the street. He also saw him run towards the car with a hoodie over his head. We were terrified. Watch part 3 for the rest. I called Karen, letting her know that he had just came to the house. She called him and he admitted that he ignored the court order showing up at the house to grab his bomb. At this point, we were highly alerted. I started changing the locks on the house, and my son started sleeping with a bat in his bed. A few more days went by with nothing happening, until one night, I woke up really cold. It was about 35 degrees at nighttime, so I had the heat set to 73 degrees. When I woke up that night, I went to check the thermostat, and it was down to 62 degrees, the lowest point. I turned it back up to 73 and then head to bed. When I wake up in the morning, it's to my daughter coughing, and I'm super cold again. My son wakes up for school and asks me why it's so cold in the house. I tell him I don't know, and I think the thermostat's broke. I go to check it again, and it's back at 62. I then ask my son, has he been touching the thermostat? And he says no, he doesn't even know how to work it. This went on for 4 days, all throughout the day, where I turn the thermostat up, it'd be down again, and then I'd be freezing cold. Turn it up again, down again. I had thought that the thermostat was broke, but it was on the 4th day that I realized it was my ex. Part 4 for more. So this is part 4, and when I left it at part 3, I had come to the realization that it was my ex who was turning down the thermostat. It was already cold, about 35 degrees outside, and for 4 days straight, my thermostat kept turning on the AC and turning off the heat to the lowest point of 62 degrees. But I want to back up really quick and explain Karen's part in this. So after my ex was released on bail, Karen had spoke to him and he had broke down telling her that sometimes he blacks out and he can't remember the things he does. According to her, he seemed remorseful and told her that if I needed help with the kids, I need to amend the no contact so he could come to the house. Of course, I wasn't going to amend the no contact. I had decided that once my son called the police that was it. I wasn't going to give him another chance and I was leaving him. I had also shared my plans to divorce him with Karen. Karen told my ex, letting him know that I wasn't going to amend the no contact and that I was leaving him. So he went from remorseful to extremely angry, resulting in these type of actions and harassments. Now back to the thermostat issue. After I discovered it was my ex, I had hurried up and revoked any app access because we had the thermostat program called Ecobee. After I revoked any app access, it no longer happened. Karen had texted me letting me know that my ex had admitted this to her, but then later on tried to deny it and she was frustrated with him. Here's that text. As time went on, Karen was having her own experiences with my ex through communicating, and she was saying comments like he's a psychopath and narcissist and his parents are enablers. She was seeing firsthand what I've been dealing with for years, and she was in shock. The next incident happened about a week after the thermostat issue. It was around 8:30 at night. Me, my daughter, and my son, we were watching TV, and all of a sudden, all the lights went off. My daughter, she was 2 at the time and afraid of the dark, so she immediately started crying while I searched for a flashlight. I found a flashlight and went outside to see if the neighborhood had a power outage. As soon as I opened the door, I saw my ex's car fly by. Then I heard my son scream, "That's him, that's him." My neighborhood didn't lose power. My ex had turned off the power box from the side of the house where there's no cameras. We were terrified, and this time I called the police. Part 5 for more. So this is part 5, and I didn't even think I would get to a part 5, but here we go. So I called the police and let them know that we believed that my ex had turned off the power, and we saw his car speeding by. Because we saw his car and not him, they said there's not much they can do, but they'll notate the case just in case something else happens. I called.
It's a long video, but I wanted to show you something right quick.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks to all my subs and supporters who watch, like, share, and comment on the video.
False white genetic annihilation.
Because you're the blackest.
Because we, right,
The most color.
right, we have this ability to produce melanin pigment. We have more of it than anybody else. And so the most pressure is on black people. As a matter of fact, the black people learn, all non-white people over the world learn. If you're black, stay back. If you're yellow, you're brown, stick around. If you're yellow, mellow, white, right. I can go to England and the people can just say the same thing. Doesn't matter whether if you go to the Philippines, because there has been a confrontation of brown with white. Everybody knows the more pigment you have, the more pressure that is on you.
Yeah.
Okay, people, so President Donald Trump is out here trying to control the inevitable demise of white Americans. Recently, he actually endorsed giving new mothers a financial reward. They're considering handing out up to $5,000 per delivery to reverse the decline of U.S. white babies, okay? Now, they're trying to do this because they said their birth rates in the United States has been slipping, hitting a new low in the year of 2023 with just under 3.6 million babies born that year. which makes the typical American family with 2.5 children a thing of the past. In the year 2023, American families had just under 2 children on average. The total number of babies born was also about 76,000, which was less than 2022 and the lowest one-year tally since the year of 1979. In addition, the pandemic, when the pandemic came, it went up a little bit. That's because people were home, nothing else to do. You know what I mean? So when the pandemic was there in 2021 and 2022, it went up a little bit, but it's going all the way back down again since. It's going back down again since. So Donald Trump said, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to try to do my part. Nothing is written in stone yet, but he was asked about this and he said it sounds like a good idea, you know, considering giving Americans a cash incentive to have more kids. People keep in mind he's talking about white children, not talking about no black people. Believe me, they're calling this the baby bonus. That's what they calling it, y'all. Trying to get white people to have larger families. 5,000, okay? They also said, in addition, they also considering giving a 30% of this Fulbright scholarship thing to applicants who are married or have children. So Fulbright scholarships, people, are a program that gives grants, you know, to people who are willing to travel and teach in other countries, learn other cultures and do research and things like that, American people. So that's what this Fulbright scholarship is. They're saying that they would give about 30% of those scholarships to these women who are married and have children. So that's another thing that they're considering. They also said another option that they're considering is for the government to fund programs to educate women on their menstrual cycle so that they know when they're ovulating, so they're able to conceive. They said we got to do something about this, man. The white people are panicking. The white people are panicking. They said that the birth rate, women having babies, are no longer more so younger women, you know, and women in their teens. They're saying that these women are now more in their 30s and 40s who are having babies now. So what they want to do is go back to younger women having babies as well. Okay. Now again, people, this is not written in stone, but they, you know, they need to consider it. They're saying, because they said we got to address these issues. White American population is declining. So Donald Trump said, I'm going to do my part to manufacture a baby boom. Not going to work, not possible, okay? It's not going to work. It's impossible. Okay? And this is another reason why Trump is doing everything to get more white people in America. He recently signed this executive order in February to allow these white South Africans to come to America because they're so-called being discriminated against in South Africa.
There is a new $40,000 whole life insurance policy with no
Now the thing about it is, it was proven that that was a lie. That most of them was talking about they were the black South Africans jumping and taking their land. It wasn't. Someone went up there and told a fib about it, and so he was able to. So get this, he throws the other people, the Indians, the Asians, and the Africans, and Hispanic, and he's getting rid of them fast. Certain ones to get them out the country fast. I mean, certain demographic of people noticed that because their population was going to start increasing. So he had to find a way, even though that it started with the situation with the criminals, the ones that committed the crime and doing things. Now he's going after everybody. And people think, oh, Americans. No, like the man said, white Americans. This country was always about skin color. But they code it differently. everything's about the skin. And even though that really it's hard for anybody, regardless of race, color, and creed, to have children right now because the cost of living. I mean, that's unrealistically going to happen. People can't afford 4 children. There's some people are holding off on having children because look what he did with the tariffs and everything. How you going to feed a family? And then you have to look at over just in the white community. They have the same. They don't talk about their health issues. They have, men that have, high cholesterol and vascular problems like any other men do. That sometimes they don't. Sometimes some of them don't live. So you're gonna have a range of single mothers, white mothers, or grandmothers that are raising second, third generation of children in rural and probably suburban areas. Then you got to take, and that's one thing, and because I seen a report on this in a little small town in Montana, and then you have the opioids addiction, overdoses. So some of these people are overdosing on, and so they leave. Who's going to raise the kids? So that's how the curse has fallen upon them, even though it was happening in the inner city among the black and the brown, but now it's hitting the rural areas. It's hitting the suburbs, and now it's starting to roll down. And then you have a segment of women in that community that want to be independent, a Western independent mindset. They're not going to subject themselves to being just having babies and raising kids. Some of them, they the first one that sparked the feminists is the white women that sparked the feminists because they want to be to themselves. Then you have a portion of women that are in the LGBTQ community. And then you have some women that just are not like any other women. They can't mature having kids because they're not mature enough to be a mother. And sometimes when you see these cases where people are unaliving their little kids. So it's a social problem. But you see how even the President of the United States see things, he just put in a different code. But that's one of the reasons why, because he saw these populations of the good part of the Western world, other part coming over from different parts of the world, populate the United States. They were going to be in the minority. That's why there's a segment of people in America that voted for Trump just because of that reason. Because they don't want to be less than a minority. Especially because it means the Democrat would change, the language change, and it's going to lose our so-called American heritage. That's one of the reasons why they didn't want to intermix. That's why sometimes, and from some of them don't say nothing about interracial dating and marriage, but that's why they really don't want interracial date, especially to the people who opposes you, like what Taylor the guy was saying. And it's a thought process that's taught from generation to generation. And it's with some people and in their household. Don't mean that everybody don't agree with it simply because they're Caucasian or white, is classified as white. No, they don't all agree. But this is one of the things that is taught. We don't mix in with the other people because that's because the white population was dropping. So they would discourage their children from getting with other races of people. Because the population. That's why Donald Trump did this. They just, you have to understand America. They know how to code things. Well, anyway, I just wanted, chime in. But yeah, and if you do decide to pick up someone of a different race, make sure they're strong enough to go through what that woman went through with her, and what that woman with the biracial children go through. I've told plenty of stories of past. I've dated women that had biracial children and what they went through. I dated a woman that was biracial, in which I saw what she personally went through. It was on the white side of the family. Now there might be some black people might get, but the white side of the family, the things that they say behind closed doors, that's just give you a segment of it. And that's who some people really are. And that's the reason why some things like that be exposed. And then some people of that union have issues because someone in part think that something must be wrong if you're part of the people that is objectively was opposed to each other in this country. And it's on assignment says we can we can date them, we can play with them, hang out with them, do it, but we don't date them. That's white people's way of saying, and to let other people know that's the way some white people taught their kids that, and continue to this day teach their kids that. It's generational. And if you haven't come across somebody, share a conversation with them. And if this topic ever come up, they'll let you know. Particularly if they look like you. If you're white, they'll be more open to let you know. Because there's no objectives, no barriers. Because people see what they see is what they think and what they appear. So they feel comfortable with what they see because they're great in numbers. That's why they feel they can say things to you. So they figure you might have some of agreement with them. That's why they voice their opinions like that. That's why they have something against interracial dating and marriage and the union of children. And now, and the reason you see how, and that goes to a certain demographic of people, what Donald Trump was trying to do. He's right. You see how they code it up? That's how they code it up. We own it. We are people, black people are people that understand, that we've been in this country so long. Every time, particularly when a white person does something like that, we already know your code. We're catching up. And that's by divine and by spiritual. That's how we know. Alright then, take care, be blessed. See you on the next video. Hey, but in positive thing, stay away from people that are idiots. Take care, be blessed. See you on the next video.